Ooh. Didn't expect that. Good afternoon. Welcome to our session, How to be in control of your Dynamics 365 integrations. I'm Peter Meekers. Risto Moreski? Yeah? Oh. Okay. Let us start with the agenda. We will tell you something about Terberg Group, and that's where I'm from, of course, obvious, and Acceptor Masters. And well, once we've done that, we tell you about the project that we're currently running, and it's basically going from full on-premise to full on cloud in the future. Once I've explained that a little bit, then Risto is going to show you how the actual integrations between, well, basically everything on the Dynamics platform, we decided to do it in a sort of special manner, and Risto is going to explain that and demo that. And afterwards, if we have time left, we're going to do some, we're going to let you ask questions. So, for Terberg Group, we're obviously based in the Netherlands, right down in the middle, in Utrecht, and we have 4 divisions. Special vehicles, environmental modification and leasing. Those special vehicles, they make those tractors that you might have seen in harbors or at distribution centers. And the other part is making rear-mounted forklifts that you see on the back of trucks. On the environmental part, we're building vehicles that, well, refuge collecting vehicles, sweepers, wash bins that clean the streets. We do all kinds of modifications, police cars, ambulances. We're doing, for Volvo, we're doing the heavy stuff, so they can run in mines and stuff. And last but not least, we are a major leasing company in the Netherlands. We're founded in 1869. We're operating out of 12 countries. They're working over 2,600 people for Terberg Group. And the turnover last year was 874 million. We're 100% family owned, and we're pretty proud of that. And we actually got recognition of that last year, because we were named the family business of the Netherlands. We even got some royal appreciation from that. Besides the, how do you call that? What, the trophy. Small movie. And now the sound doesn't work. That's strange, because we tested it. Let me put it slightly back, because that's... Should be on there.
No, video's not playing, is it?
No. So.
It's meant to be here, isn't it? It's going. Is it embedded yet?
Yeah.
Do you want to reinsert it?
No, it's it worked all.
Yeah, but it's not working now, so you can reinsert it, or...
And I can try this.
Still no sound. It's obviously reverted to the HTML.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then let me try and explain what's been shown and what the people are saying over here. They are awesome. Let it run, because otherwise it will take too long. And that's the Dutch one, but it's 100% family owned. We're worldwide active. We're customer focused. Innovation is obviously prime. And this is actually where we started in Benchop in 1869. The first generation, he was a smithy. And you will see the oldest member of the family explaining that her father was always there for her customers. So that goes to show that we are, well, basically 100% customer focused. These three gentlemen are the members of the board of Terberg. It's running a bit slow, but they're walking a bit slow, but in a minute you will see the portfolio of the things that we produce and we manufacture. Oh, you see those trucks behind it, and this is actually in our facility on our site in Benschop, where they produce the Ro-Ro tractors. This is the Volvos, where they put on extra traction controls on the Volvo trucks. Again, 100% family owned. It's going slow. It's George Terberg telling that he's 100% customer focused and going for every opportunity which presents itself, especially in specialist automotive market. This is our facility in Benschop. This is where the real fun happens. I was supposed to be silent during these 4 minutes. What you see where all these kind of trucks, they're all made customized to the customer's need. This technique who modifies trucks. It goes too slow. This will take more than 10 minutes if we go on like this. So if you let me, then I'm going to switch back to my original presentation. And let Rieste tell you something about Axapta Masters.
Thanks, Peter. Let's say a few words about Axapta Masters.
Do you have sound?
Okay, obviously we have a problem with the sound, but I'll speak loud. Hopefully you can...
Why did it went back?
No. Okay, so Axapta Masters is founded in 2013 by 3 Dynamics professionals, growing over the last 5 years up to 50 people. It's located in Skopje, Macedonia, and specialized in delivering services on Dynamics platform. During the last year, we started together with Terberg working with this interesting and challenging project to integrate different Dynamics products.
Did you hear that in the back?
Can you speak a little louder?
Yeah, shall I try to do it? If you...
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Axapta Masters projects clients actually are spread around Europe and US mainly. So that's in short. Peter, you can continue with the project.
Okay. Well, hopefully from now on everything goes all right. We don't have lots of interaction, but in November 2016, in October, I joined Terberg and basically got the goal set of getting all, they acquired the environmental division from another company. There were two major companies within that environmental division, but they extended it by acquiring a company called Rosroca, and there were 4 major manufacturing companies within there. And we basically got the goal to get all environmental companies, and 2 companies were still on legacy systems from the special vehicles division onto the central, at the current time, at the central on-premise AX2012 R3 instance. Come on. Oh, I probably clicked on another button that I shouldn't have done. Okay. But besides that, our aftermarket processes included services. And a year before, Microsoft decided to buy, or 2 years before I think, decided to buy Field 1, and Terberg follows Microsoft Business Solutions. So that meant that for our field service goal, so to speak, we had to adopt to sales as well. That was our first jump into the cloud, as you can imagine. And so at the start of our journey, we were thinking only to go to the cloud and implement sales, where we were going to use field service. But field service had to be integrated with operations. You can do all kinds of nice stuff by planning and doing work orders and saying that you're using all kinds of parts. But if it's not integrated with your back-end system, what are you doing with it? So we needed to have an integration, which wasn't there yet. Another thing was that we are already on that AX2012 R3 system, we didn't want any more bespoke development. We already had a lot, it was just costly. And the maintenance of it is also very intensive and therefore also costly. So the prime directive was that we're not allowed to do any more real big bespoke development within our, especially within AX2012, but within all applications. We leave it as it is, and especially when going to the cloud, when we get upgrades after upgrade after upgrade, it's even dangerous, because it could conflict with generic developments from Microsoft and or our ISVs. To be able to get, at that point, 8 companies onto a new platform or in the shortest amount of time, I also said, okay, but that's only possible if we do it like when we harmonize those processes. Because if we go in at each company and ask them what they need from the system, then we get 8 different versions and 8 different solutions. That wouldn't be possible within the time frame set. Oh. And then it reacts 3 times. So we opted for a kernel approach, where we were harmonizing processes, and we would also harmonize on data. Having said that, we call that the kernel approach, or the core approach. We divide it up in business streams, which is basically, we organize ourselves around domain experts. And finally, I will tell you something about the project, how we do that. The decision was made to unify on a couple of applications. because we engineer, configure to order when we sell those trucks. That engineering part is done through two major PLM systems. That's Siemens Teamcenter and PTC Windchill. For the sales part, we obviously chose Dynamics 365 for sales, including a configurator, sales and product configurator, Syncom, and field service, of course. On the back end, we were already on an AX track, but we now, at that point, we still were on the AX2012 R3 goal, but I've changed it here because we took a decision to go to finance or operations. And finally, for HR purposes, we're also doing now 365 for talent. But the main thing is we will unify on processes, and we divided that bit by bit up, starting from OEM sales, the configure, engineer to order. Once the order has been, when we got the order, then it's transferred to operations, and we do the manufacturing and the logistics bits, of course the finance afterwards, and then we transfer that over to our aftermarket part, which is again in sales, where it's the sales of parts, it's rental, and it's service. And all have their domain experts. We call them stream leads. Now, how did we do that? Because the 8 companies which were involved, they all came from their own legacy systems. And they all had their own little processes. Each process, whether it's purchase or manufacturing, whether it's sales, whether it's delivery, they did that in their own way. And they all were thinking, this is the best way to work. Well, every process, we set a time frame for it and put them all in one room. And at the end of the day, they were told to get back to us, or together with us, with one and the same solution, with one and the same process. And also by showing that process into in our applications, that in the end of it, and if you put it all together, what's been the process, which is basically standard in sales and in operations, is basically what you get out of that process. So there was no need for real bespoke development after that. Once it's defined that, that's what we call, for each little process, we call the kernel solution. The kernel solution is, that we are developing now, we train it, and the companies are now getting adjusted to it. And once we've established that, we're going to implement that company by company. So we first are designing and developing that kernel solution, and as of after the holidays, we're going to implement them at the companies. Oh. Come on. Maybe I should step back a little bit, because where are we in the project? We are around about here. Sim 2 is what we call, is that the key users of the companies should prove that the kernel works, that they all can work with the same processes, that the receival process of goods of one company is exactly the same as for another. The languages might be different, but that's about it. Once we've done that, we're going company by company. We're going to implement or deliver it and deploy it at the companies. Because we did it on a kernel solution and we trained everyone on a kernel solution, we're able to, or we think we're able to do 3 companies before the end of the year. Some couple of major decisions which we had to take into account. IoT, December of 2016, IoT was marked as strategic, meaning that we were not just selling trucks anymore and just ask, or when the customer asks for spare parts, service or rental, we're going to react. No, we're going to get the data out of our vehicles and trying to be predictive, trying to listen better, to be before the customer knows that he had a problem, that we already react on it, adding more value to them. So that was why IT was marked as strategic. In April 2017, we saw that we couldn't just add those companies to our current AX2012 R3 system. We wanted a certain future-proof system, and one of which was that we would use the new warehouse management solution. Our current version of R3 was based on the old WMS system, and those were incompatible. That meant either a new AX instance or going for the cloud altogether. At that point in time, we said, okay, let's go where no one has gone before and adopt to finance and operations. We also decided for each of those domains, not only to have in-house experts, so on OEM sales, on operations in manufacturing and logistics, and for finance and for all our aftermarket processes, we all have our internal experts. But we also yes, we're using new applications that make the program better suited for us. That's Pulse. That's delivering expertise and solutions for manufacturing and logistics within operations. Accompanied with Anata for automotive aftermarket processes. And to increase for the engineering part. They all have their own, they bring not only solutions, but they also bring expertise with it. And we need that expertise to be able to build up the system as quick as we can. And last but not least is also Syncom as a solution that is a product and sales and product configurator that is fully integrated within sales. Now, one of the major points that we made on integrations, because we all know when you start off with sales and with talent and with operations, they're all fine programs or applications, but they don't, as yet, not integrate. Those processes are not integrated yet. And yes, there's a lot of talk about the common data service, but it's still not fully equipped to deliver everything that we need. Therefore, we also needed integration experts. Now, I have a little background in integrating everything from SharePoint to project to CAD systems, and but I'm not the biggest expert when it comes to developing in .NET. I know a thing or two, but I needed extra help, and that came with hiring extra system architects called the Jascha Guschiebeek and Konrad Meinzer from Kaya Consulting, and my colleagues from AXUG Masters who are doing the actual development work. One last major decision was to also use talent. And when you then look at the application landscape with all of the things that I just talked about, then what was it, 2017, that we were still on all kinds of old and legacy systems where one company was using BAN, Avante and ProAlpha, and we have our PLM systems. The decision was made to go from here actually to here. And we now have an objective to basically get rid of all on-premise applications and services, and by 2021 be full in the cloud. Meaning over 26 companies and all the users that we just talked about. The first thing that we did, because we had we were full on-premise, so we hadn't have any cloud thing going on whatsoever. The first thing that we did was synchronize Active Directory. So if I can give you one advice, and if you're not in the cloud yet and thinking about it, first synchronize your Active Directory. If you don't do that, you will get yourselves in a lot of trouble. But having this picture as the future, we had a couple of questions to answer. First of all, how do we get those the data out of those legacy systems into the new situation? And two, how are we going to make this an integrated and orchestrated system? Because basically in the good old days of AX2012 R3, everything is in AX. And now we are dividing that up into multiple applications. Even supported by extra applications, because we're using AppyServer as our CMS system. We're using FormPipe as our document output management system. And I can go on and on about extra systems that we use. And they all need to work in an integrated and orchestrated manner, as if we were still in an old big monolithic AX2012 system. Combined with AOT, then one thing is absolutely clear: to be able to give, to be successful, we must mark integrations as of strategic importance. This is easier said than done, because the biggest challenge was basically what this picture tells you. If you look at it, prior to going to the cloud, prior to Dynamics, the whole Dynamics environment, prior to the Dynamics platform, we were just thinking in terms of the little box called AX. If we had a business problem, we would solve it somehow, developing something in AX. But now, all of a sudden, there's a whole range of stuff going on with best of breed applications. The way sales is developing, it's the best of breed application for every sales purpose there is. The way talent is going, it's looking to be the best HR solution there is. And of course, we're all here for AX, so we regard it as the best internal operations application there is. And they all have their domain experts. And all those domain experts still live inside that box. If you ask someone about, from HR about an HR problem, and they know about talent, they will solve it out of division, out of talent. And don't think about the consequences of what that has further on in the system. Just think about employees. Employees will start from talent, but they need to be in operations and in sales as well. They need to be in Active Directory. Talent has an organizational structure, by the way, the same as AX. So the organizational structure that you know of in AX should be the same in operations. And a similar version of that should be in sales. But as it currently stands, no one is thinking about the consequences outside of that box. But to be able to give Terberg the integrated and orchestrated system, we, as the integrators, should be thinking about. And not only we all the people that work with us. They should be aware that there's a process, or there's a starting point, there's an event going on that has consequences for other systems, other applications. And that was the main problem in our project until now. Because that meant that every consultant had to think outside of that box. He shouldn't think of anymore about just solving its problem within AX. But he should look at the whole picture of possibility that he has, not only within Dynamics, but on the whole Azure platform as well. Then that means collaborating with people that you don't know yet, that are coming from other companies that have expertise, knowledge in those areas as well. Where you used to, where you're coming from an AX point of view, everything is dealt by your partner. But even that partner doesn't have the full expertise of every application. There isn't an AX partner or an ERP partner that knows everything about CMS, or about document output, or about sales. Although some do a pretty good job right now. But also, there is no, for those integrations, no one has done those integrations to the full extent yet. So we're bound to experiment, and you need to dare to experiment. Where, in the good old days, with AX, you just evolve the ideas that you had before, and the solutions that you had before, and you evolve them onto the next customer. That isn't good enough anymore. So everyone who works with us in our project, they had to think about what the challenge that we're facing with. They had to build up new knowledge. They had to adapt to our vision of the way we want it to be. We don't care about what the short term will bring us. That would be probably certain, or with some certainty you can do a little program and then have the thing working again. But you have to keep in mind the long-term view. Look at the whole total platform. That should work as a system. And last but not least, the thing that we hate the most at the work is when people always are talking about yes, but, and then sort of state problem after problem after problem. We needed people to work with us and say, okay, yes, this is what we want to do, and this is how we can help you. This is where this solution might help. This is where start experimenting with stuff. It took us 1.5 years to get to this point, and we're now sort of having the culture where we basically are thriving in the project and seeing things come about. Come on. So, when you look at it just from a Dynamics point of view, 3 big applications that don't necessarily work together, and certainly not in early 2017. And I got the goal, or we got the goal, to make it an integrated system, like it was in AX2012. When you look at that and I say, okay, what are we going to do? Then we need tools where we can say, okay, whatever problem I will encounter, I must have the means to get out of them. At that point in time, we decided we were also looking at the common data model and the common data services, and we already saw some difficulty with it, and that wasn't a real option. And the other part was not having full enough knowledge to solve each issue that we will encounter. So again, we need domain expertise for applications, but we also need the domain application knowledge and skills in integrations. And as I said, integrations are of strategic importance. So we took charge of them. We're not going to let anyone else run them. We are saying what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. And who will do it. Some other considerations, because setting up your own development team isn't that easy. So if it were only for integrations, then, well, like we said, IoT is getting more and more important. And with that, because you're getting a lot of data, getting information out of that data is also getting more and more important. So the whole process of dealing with data is getting more important. Then, again, coming from good old AX2012 or 29, we all have our tools like Scribe. But with Scribe and other tools like that, you get to a certain point and then you have to develop it anyway, because you're hitting a process that's too difficult. And when you're hitting development, again, you need knowledge, you need people, skillful people with a lot of expertise. So we opted for to build a development team ourselves. Yeah, and last but certainly not least, our integration scenarios are complex. Just by thinking about when we sell a truck. It's not that just the sales order line is created, or a sales order and the sales order line is created. No, the full bill of materials is created. We have parts of our trucks that are built in other companies. So it's not a full bill of material structure that goes into one company. No, the bill of material structure goes into several companies. And it's all project-based. So we have a top project, we have a sub-project with a sales order, and alongside it go the bill of materials and the routings. Even the routing logic. Every routing is obviously company specific. So if a truck can be built on site A or site B, it might have the same bill of material, but it have a different routing. Those kind of scenarios are virtually impossible to do based on standard integration tools. So we sat together and we said, okay, well, how are we going to do this? And we decided for some principles regarding integration. First of all, it's event-based. It's not that during the evening we start up and synchronizing just the left data from the application on the left-hand side, or from sales, and integrate that with operations. No, if something happens, we create a sales order. At that point in time, the message, the sending of the message is triggered. And only when we want it, and what we want. Because, why I say here not unnecessary synchronization, because if, for instance, you load up or you convert from your old legacy systems all your customers into operations, half of them is pollution. Because what, if that data isn't used in the future within operations, then it shouldn't have been there altogether. So what we did, we decided to pull the data from our legacy system, convert them into a canonical format, basically based on a common data model, but put them into a master data scheme. Sales is pulling data from the master data, and only if needed, only if a sales order actually has been created, that account is created within operations. That also makes life easy for converting stuff. But with ordinary tools, this is impossible. Message-based. Basically, if you know anything about entities, if not, read up on it. But what it actually does is that that the sender, let's say sales, sends a message based on a trigger to operations. It sends the whole message. It is not just the fields that operations need. No, it sends everything. And we let operations decide what to do with it. If we change something for whatever reason, or Microsoft changes something in that entity, a couple of fields get added to that entity, it's just a send over. And operations can decide for themselves whether it will use it or not. And that way, each domain, each application, each service can evolve in its own manner and right. And the other applications can follow or not. But it doesn't have to be directly connected. And the last bit, subscription-based. So an application has an event where a message is sent, in our case, to the service bus. And in that service bus, multiple applications can subscribe to the same message. If an employee is created in Talent, that's sent to the bus, and there will be a user in Active Directory, there will be an employee in sales, there will be an employee in operations. All based on one and the same event. And when you put that all together, you're getting to this picture of the application landscape. Where we have, first of all, and that's now the center of our system, is the master data management system. It started off with converting legacy data into the master data in order to populate the other systems, mainly sales and operations. But we let that evolve. We built validations. When we imported legacy data, we built a validation in order to keep that data in the master data as clean as possible. And we built those validations as services. So if you look at accounts, we built in some checks where we got rid of the risk of duplications. That is run over here, but when you create a new account in sales, that same validation service is called upon to check whether this account doesn't already exist somewhere. And if it does, it will copy it. And that goes for all domains in the master data. So we reuse the same logic, which isn't present in well, basically everywhere in this system. What we call on it from the master data within sales or operations or wherever we create accounts. Well, there's a place for data science. One thing I would like to point out on our integration layer, we started off with using the Azure Enterprise Service Bus, but based on that pattern that we developed, and which Rishta will show in a minute, we included other newer integration options. One of the latest is the Service Fabric, where we will show a little demo, movie actually, but what we're doing there. But that Service Fabric, that microservice technology, that delivers us functionality that we can share across, well, basically in this case it's sales and operations, but we can use it basically everywhere, and it's always the same logic that's reused over and over again. hopefully your mic works now.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, thank you. Let's go now more into technical details, basically to see the considerations that we made, the decision that we took, and why we did it. So let's start with the considerations that we made for the integrations. First of all, it was required to create a stable system that can be easily maintainable, and that we can basically be in control of it and easily monitor the integrations that we have. And yet more, the requirement was to make all the Dynamics 365 application to run as one piece, not just to integrate the applications, actually move the data from one to another, but make it work as one. So when you do a change in one of the applications, to do a validation across all suite of applications in the cloud. Then we also had the master data implementation with the master-slave principle, which is very important at Terberg. I'm going into more details later on with the master-slave principle. Then we also had legacy systems like AX2012. We had some portals like Parts Online and Aliander, which are customer portals where you can do a warranty request or a service request. And last but not least consideration, we wanted to keep the development of the enterprise application as low as possible. So keep it as clean as possible, do less changes as it is also recommended. Now, for our solution, we decided to take advantage of the new technologies, mainly Azure Service Bus. So topics and queues as a technology to provide you with a messaging platform that is reliable, that is stable, that works on the same platform as your Dynamics 365 application. Then we also use the Logic Apps as a great technology that allows you to do workflows, to basically catch some events, to do notifications to your users, to do approvals. You can set all this up in Logic App, and we took the advantage to use them. As Peter mentioned, we didn't just integrate data between the systems, but also functionalities. So we used the Service Fabric as a new technology, so microservices based on Service Fabric, to basically share functionalities between the enterprise application. We're going to show that later on a demo. Now, about the architecture of the system, we decided to do it as a middleware system, so we'll keep it all in one place, and then we'll have only one place to change if we need to change something, if we need to integrate more. This reduces the complexity of the solution, so you don't integrate every single application with every other in the system, but everything goes through one point of integration. This, of course, makes it much easier to maintain later on. And also one important point, also Peter mentioned about this, we use generic messages. So we always take the entity or the record as is in the system. For example, in sales, we take the record as is and then send it to the middleware system, to the integration platform. Then if for any reason this entity is changed, new fields added, these fields will automatically go to the bus, to the middleware system, and then it's up to the business logic to decide if these fields need to go to some of their systems or not. Now, Enterprise Service Bus is actually the name of the Terberg's integration platform. So, as you can see on the diagram, we have the business applications on top. So, Dynamics 365 for operations, or D3O, master data management, and D3S, or Dynamics for sales. Now, in case of an event in any of these systems, the message will go to the ESB, to the Enterprise Service Bus, to the messaging, actually not messaging, but integration platform. And then it will be stored on the Azure Service Bus as a topic. Then we have listener components that listen and track these topics. These listeners will trigger an action every time when they see that there is a new message in the topic. Now, these listeners, based on a subscription that can be done as a setup, decides which systems are interested in any kind of message. For example, we have customer update or account update into Dynamics for Sales. For this message, we have interested Dynamics for Operations and the master data management. So we'll make a setup for these two applications to make a subscription to this event, to this topic, and these two applications will pick up the message and update their own data. The same goes for a change in any other application. Then we'll just push the message to any other system. What is also important for this system, the Enterprise Service Bus, we did it as, or we split it as a business services and validation services. The business services are responsible to actually propagate the changes. So in case of a change of the account, the business services will take the message, put on the service bus, and then the listener will pick it up, instance a provider, and then push it to any other system. Validation services are also part of this solution, and are mainly based on the master data management implementation. So in case of any change in the system, we trigger the validation services beforehand, so they will make a validation of the record across the whole suite of application. If we say that this update is allowed, then we will process with the business services and send the message. Otherwise, we'll stop. We don't want to have corrupted data. Actually, do an update in one system, and then figure out that this message cannot be processed in other systems, and then do whatever to fix the data. We don't want that. We want to have a clean data if we cannot do a change. For example, if you take operations, you want to make an invoice, but you have no posting setup. AX will complain, will not allow you to create the invoice and later on to fix the GL. So we want to achieve exactly the same with this. And then the last point, we wanted to have minimum customizations in the systems. So for Dynamics 365 for Sales, we used plugins with a very small customization, small code that should call the validation services and push the message to the business services. The same goes for operations. We use simple extensions and actually catch event in operations and then pass the message to the service bus. To go more into details for the subscription, as you see, the system on the left, Dynamics for Sales or Operation, will just push the message to a topic, and then the listener, based on the subscription definition, on the subscription database, will call every provider that is interested in this message. And this, of course, can be later on changed. For example, when we implement Talent or any other new system, we can just extend the subscription setup and then call the new provider to update the new application. Then it's up to implement the business logic on how this message should be treated for that specific application. Now, why we chose Azure Service Bus and .NET technology to implement this system and not something else? Peter already mentioned the limitations that we have with the standard application, but furthermore, we have a complex integration logic at Terberg. To explain in some examples, not always the integration is one-to-one. So it's not always that we have a record in one system and we need to translate this into a record in the other system.
Quite often we have events that should be ignored, but at some point this data should go into other applications. For example, accounts. When you create accounts in Dynamics for Sales, we don't want to automatically create customer into operations. If we don't have a trade with this account, we don't want this record as a customer into operations. For the first time when we create a sales order, when we win a quote, then we want this record to be created as a customer and a sales order as well. So we don't want unnecessary integration. That's one example. Another example is that not always we have the same data in both systems. For example, opportunities into sales at Terberg are translated into internal projects into operations. And this is because they want to track their cost in case of an opportunity. For example, if you have an opportunity to build a custom device or a custom truck or a customized truck for a client, then of course the cost is big and they want to track this into operation. In order to do that, the design is to move actually data from, to connect opportunities to projects. Then, we also had the master-slave principle. At Terberg, during the implementation of the master data management, what is important is not just to define the master system. So for example, we can say that sales is a master for accounts. You can create accounts there and you cannot edit them in operations. But here the logic is a bit more complex. So they have actually, they need to know the master company, not just the system, but the master company on record level. What does it mean? It means that for some data, for some entities, I can create a record. This record needs to be replicated in all application, in all system, but still the company, the legal entity that created this record is the master of the record, and it's the only company that can make changes to it. In order to provide this, that's why we created the validation services on top of the master data management as part of this solution. Then again, we had these other systems that need to be integrated, and in the end, we wanted to be in control of the whole integration, so we track every step of the integration. Because in the complex scenarios, you can have multiple steps until you finish the scenario. So we always log every single step so we know which step of the integration is done. If something went wrong, we will know that. And in the end, with .NET technology, it's a pretty mature technology. We know what we can do, and we can always make changes. We can basically do our requirements. Which technology we used for this integration framework? So, as I already said, in Dynamics for Sales, we use the CRM plugins. So these plugins will trigger the messages to validation and business services. In operation, that's the event handler, so we'll keep the Microsoft code clean. We'll do it on the side. And for master data management, that's logic apps and SQL triggers that can catch any events and send a message to other application. On the enterprise service bus level, on the Terberg's integration platform, we use XRM API to update data into sales, data entities via OData interface to update data into operations, pretty standard, and entity framework for the master data management. Now, in order to explain the framework, how it works, let's take a look at the account update scenario. So we have the account already in the system, we make an update. Now, at the first step, you can see the field value collection is sent to the business service. So always, regardless of how many fields we have defined on the account, everything will go to the business service. Now, the business service will save this message in a topic on the Azure Service Bus. Why we have the business services? That's just to encapsulate these topics. So in the future, if Microsoft come up with a new technology, better technology, we can use that one, change the topics, but still keep the same data contracts, still keep the same development between enterprise application and the service bus, enterprise service bus to the integration platform. So we are going to change only the messaging technology if we decide to do it. Then basically the two topic icons that you see is actually the same topic, but different subscription. You can subscribe multiple interested parties to the same topic, and the message will persist there until all applications read the message and process successfully. So then we'll have the listeners that will trigger different providers for T3O, for operations, and for master data management. These two providers will do the update in both systems. Master-slave principle. As already said, we want to keep our data consistent in all applications, in all companies in that application.
Let's show it, because otherwise we're 28 minutes and we're not showing anything, so we should go on to the demos.
Yeah, I'll continue. I'll show you the demo. As you can see, we did it for terms of payments, delivery mode, delivery tax groups, as data that we want to move to sales in order to be able to create a sales order that can be processed in operations. Can we please switch to the demo PC? Can we switch to the demo PC? Okay.
You need to unplug it again.
It's going to sleep.
Okay.
Here goes testing for you. We did a half an hour prior to this. We of course tested every connection, every sound, and everything worked. But the demo gods aren't with us.
Okay.
Here it is again.
All right. I'm now in finance and operations. I'll just navigate to sales tax groups. And quickly, I'll create a new sales tax group. All right. And I'll just save this tax group. Now, once this tax group saved, it will automatically go to the other companies. For example, this one.
Basically, this shows that we want to be in control of this kind of master data, where we don't want every company to come up with their own sales tax groups, with their own mode of delivery, with their own methods of payment. We want them shared. And we will only allow a couple of people to create this kind of data.
Yeah. Now, when I try to do a change instead of AXUG demo for AXUG, you see I get an error message that the company OPRP is not master for sales tax group that I created. My master company is OPR, which means that I cannot make changes from another companies. That's a requirement, and we do it with the validation services on top of the master data. Now, to show you that this is propagated to sales, I'll navigate to the sales tax groups here.
Well, basically, this kind of data isn't available as standard within sales. We did a little bit of customization on that part. So we can we also use that in our quotes and sales orders, but again we want to have the same data. So it's not only going to master data; it's also going to sales.
Sales tax groups.
No, we're not going to mail it. Let it run a while, because, can you leave this, because the CRM system is kind of slow. If you let it run, this will pop up in a second. There's a reason why this well, sales is a little bit slow, but we couldn't adjust it, and this is what you get when you're doing live demos.
Yeah, I'll refresh in a second. We can
Leave the screen on.
Yeah.
Let's move to the second demo. Like Risa said.
Yeah, maybe if we can quickly switch to the presentation, because I want to explain one diagram with yeah, thank you. Okay, before I go with this demo. Now, the demo that we are going to show is the opportunity to project. So, as you can see, we're using the same pattern. When we have an opportunity, we pack the record, send to the business services. This will put it on the topic. Then the listener will pick up the message. Then we'll call the provider for D3O. But now the provider should create a project into D3O, into operations, and then update sales back, update the project ID. So again, we use the same pattern. We go through the same pattern. But we have a one callback. Can you please switch back to the demo? Okay.
So functionally,
yeah, you see the
leads are there
you can see now
to win, but opportunities are there to lose. And when you're selling trucks, which are built at customs, every truck is special. There's something that has to be engineered. It's configured to order, a few options, and then the customer needs something extra. So it takes a half a year to build a truck like that. Yeah. And once you have the opportunity and you start to engineer, you start having conversation, you go over there, you will have engineers spending time to it, you have account managers spending time to it. So basically, you want to track the cost of those activities. And cost is tracked in finance and operations based on a project. Internal project, nevertheless a project. Is our... we already have the sales tax code. All right. Let's go into our next scenario and create an opportunity into sales. We actually had videos prepared as well, but it's prior to, 5 minutes prior to this meeting, I said, okay, let's do the videos, but we decided to do the demos anyway, so it's more exciting.
All right, I'll create a new opportunity. I need to choose a company, which is a specific thing, customization for Terberg. And then I'll save my opportunity. In real life, there will be more data here, but just for demonstration purposes, I think it's enough. Now, according to the diagram that we had, this opportunity should be integrated into operations as an internal project. And later on, here at the operations project ID, we should see the project ID generated into operations. So we have both way integration. Now I'll navigate to finance and operations. First, I need to change the company to OPR because that's the company that I used for my example. All right. Then I'll just navigate to project management and accounting, all projects. Then I'll do a filter, and you can see that the opportunity that I created into sales is now already created as a internal project into operations. Now,
So with,
This-
with the new apps, those sales employees can now run the expenses from their mobile and just put in the picture, send in the expense, and it will pop up in project.
Yeah. Now let's continue with the sales cycle. Based on this opportunity, I can make a quote. So I can give a quote to the potential client. So I'll go to quotes and then create a new one. At this point, at the quote creation level, at quote creation point, we don't integrate anything into operations, and that's because we don't need this information into finance and operation. We need it into sales. We track the quotes and the successful rate into sales. So just choose the same company. I'll link my quote to my opportunity. Then I'll choose my potential customer. And here I have my accounts. Choose this one. Then another specific part for Terberg. We need to specify an address for later processes. Then I'll just use the same name. It's easier for reference. Choose some price list. I can say it's a production. And in case I can save my quote. Nothing will happen now in operations. Now, if we lose this quote, operation doesn't care. But if we win the quote and actually create a sales order out of it, then we're interested into integrating this data back to operations. Just to put some lines into the quote. Right. So now, I can say that I activate the quote. Still nothing happens. And then I can create a sales order because I win this quote. All right, I have my sales order. For this demo purposes, I need to do this change. And now I would like to go back to the presentation screen to actually explain what is going on behind the scenes, if possible.
Can we switch screens again?
Can we switch, please?
No. Yeah, here
Okay.
it is. But then...
Yeah, that was the demo.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so now if you see, we're using exactly the same pattern again. So we don't do any change in the system, but using exactly the same pattern. So now the sales order will be packed and sent to the business service. Then the business services will put this message on the topic. Then we'll have the listener pick up the message and then say to the provider, process this message. But now, as you can see, the integration logic is a bit more complex. So first of all, we need to go again in the fourth step to Dynamics for sales, pick up the related data, so the sales lines, account data, anything else, opportunity, everything that we need to continue with the processing of the message. Then when we have all the data in our provider, we have a lot of actions that should happen against Dynamics for operations. So first of all, we should check if this account is already existing customer into operation. If not, we should create it. Maybe it's existing in a different company. Maybe this time we do a sale from a different company. Then we should release or actually create the same customer in a different company. The second step is to create a project contract. So we create a project contract because this is we need this project contract in order to create the next step, which is a sub-project of the internal project that we had for the opportunity. So basically we continue with the integration. We had an opportunity, we have internal project to track the cost. Now we have a quote, and within this quote we have a sales order into sales. We do internal, actually sub-project, which is time and material under the internal project, and then we create a project sales order and sales line to this sales order. And again, in the response from this integration, we get the IDs and then integrate back to sales, so we'll have the link on this transactional data integration. I don't know, Peter, maybe you want to explain more details into the... For the
you took my
scenario.
words. But you need to get back to, can we switch the screens again? Because we're now getting into operations. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just made a change here to see all the levels, not just the top. And you can see now under my internal project, I have a time and material project, sub-project. If I go to this project, then I would expect that we have a sales order created underneath. I didn't show the project contract, but it must be there, otherwise it won't work. So we see I have the sales order created for my for the customer in the system, and then I have the sales lines on my sales order. So basically, again, now we create a lot more from one event, creating a sales order, actually confirming a sales order into sales. From one event, we create a lot more into operations. So this is the complex scenario that it's not easy to support with some other tools if you don't do it in a controlled way or in a framework that you build your own.
Can we switch back again?
Yeah,
we're now
can
going
you please
to...
switch back into the presentation?
Gentlemen, can we switch back to the screen one? Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
That was the sales order creation scenario.
Now, one more thing, or another interesting integration, which is basically not just sharing data, but also sharing functionalities. We had a requirement that we should have basically the same functionalities into Dynamics for Sales and Dynamics for Operations. And it's not just one functionality, but multiple functionalities. For example, we have the sequence planning or bucket planning. Peter will explain into more details in a moment. But we needed the same functionality, which is basically technically a Gantt chart functionality where you can do drag and drop in both applications. You can, of course, build this twice or 10 types if you have 10 applications that you need the functionalities, but it's better if you can just share it. The same goes for devices, which are also at Terberg, that tracks trails or something like that, also known as object in some vertical solutions or assets. And we had more or less the same requirement for products, especially in the process of product creation, initiation of product creation, where people from multiple departments need to fill in different attributes on the products. In order to do this, we considered the new technologies, power-ups in the first place. But at that point in time, a few months back, it turned out that it's actually harder to do it with power-ups. Yeah, power-ups is getting better and better every day. I'm pretty much sure it will be a great product and you can do a lot of good stuff with the power-ups, but for us, it wasn't enough. On the other side, we took advantage of the Logic App and used the Logic App to save a lot of time to do some workflows, notifications, approvals, etc. In the end, we decided to do so-called Azure apps, which are basically web application that run on Azure, that use the same security model, so Azure Active Directory sign-in, and in short, we'll show you how we integrated this into sales and operations, and later on with a small look and feel changes, we can make it look the same as Office 365, and
Yeah.
for the user will be just the same.
In this case,
Yep, please.
we talked about selling trucks and manufacturing trucks. And at each site, we can only produce 25 to 30 trucks a week. So what you see here is a week overview, and the green bits are basically the capacity stated by each production line. They're all assembly lines. And what we wanted is that that sales, when they put in an opportunity with a certain certainty degree, could reserve capacity out of in a certain week. They were obviously discussing with their customers when that truck could be delivered. And basically that meant calling production or manufacturing all the time and see whether a slot would be available to reserve for them and to say to the customer, okay, then it would be possible. Now, the green bit is done by the production manager, who states per week how much capacity he has. He does that in terms of trucks from a standard complexity. And what the sales representative does, they say, okay, I have an opportunity for a truck, and given a certain parameters, it's either an easy truck or a difficult truck. That's why you see those. That's what we call buckets. But that's basically the height of the bucket is displaying the complexity of it. When it's more complex, although it's an assembly line, we mix them with easier trucks, and by mixing them up, we're getting to always to the same quantity of built trucks in a week. So the production manager who works from finance and operations is using the exact same screen as the sales representative. The sales representative creates the opportunity, and when he creates a sales order, this is the reference to it is translated to that sales order. And when he creates it, it will it will mark a block which is not confirmed yet. That's why it's striped. These are confirmed by the production manager, those full blocks. But in that manner, the sales representatives can give some certainty to the customer that this truck will be built in this week or day. And the sales representatives will work from the opportunity screen in sales. And let's show how that's being done. And hopefully it goes.
Yeah, just a few words. Again, we're using the same pattern, the same application structure. So now you can see we have sales, we have operations, and we have our bucket planning application built on service fabric with microservices as a state service, communicating with enterprise service bus, and then again the same Azure service bus, topics, listeners, providers, subscriptions, and then updating all other applications.
And since we have 5 minutes.
Yeah. And again, you can see now in the demo that basically we integrate this application within both in a very easy way.
Yep.
So,
here it goes.
yeah. 2 more slides, I guess. Yeah.
So we are in an opportunity. Will it start, or do we have to press? Do you have to press?
Okay.
Here it goes, because it is a movie.
Yeah, it is a movie. So you see the product forecast is is empty into sales. In operations, it's translated into demand forecast, which is also empty. We have nothing in there. Now, if we go to the bucket planning, it's already integrated. We just need to fix the look and feel. You see, we have Tuesday was a day with no plannings. Now we'll create a product forecast. For one product, the quantity will be 3, so we need to have 3 buckets, and this should be translated into 3 lines into operations in the demand forecast. All right. Then into operations, we can just refresh and see that the data is there, but also the same message, it's processed, and the state of the service fabric was changed. So now we have the 3 buckets in this application.
And basically, what each of the representatives can do is to just pick up the block and throw it, drag and drop it anywhere in the schema.
Yeah, now we see that if we delete this, the change will also be propagated to other 2 systems interested in this message. So the buckets will be deleted now, but also the demand forecast lines, so the sales forecast lines. Yeah, so, and if you noticed, we can navigate to the application very easy now into a web-based system. It's very easy to navigate to another web-based application. Okay.
So basically, that goes to show that we're not doing inner application development anymore. We're building functionality outside, based on Azure. In this case, on a Microsoft Service Fabric framework. We're building extra functionality on that. We're taking sales and operations data into it. We do our thing. And then the result of it is, again, posted on the bus. And it will result into one and the same message. And that same message goes into sales and operations at the same time. Every time, according to the same pattern. So the technique might be difficult to learn up front, but reusing the same pattern over and over again makes it maintainable and easy. Are we there yet?
Yeah, that's the video again.
Oh, go to the, because we have 2 minutes to go.
Yeah.
Our conclusion was that by by going to the cloud and going to multiple applications, where we used to have that in one application, and where we expect those applications to function in an integrated and orchestrated way, because that's what was happening in ERP as well, then integrations are of strategic importance. When we look at the future and we see IoT and data science are getting more and more important, and the results of that data science need to be fed back into our business applications, because otherwise, what the hell are we doing it for? That makes working with data and know the flow of data as of strategic importance. In my opinion, when it's strategic, you need to be in control. You can't just leave it to any partner. You need to be aware of what happens in your own systems according to your own processes that you defined.
Hey, when we go to the questions slide, can you also switch to the demo again?
Your mic is still on.
I'll ask you one more time to switch to the demo. Okay.
Can you put 2 down? You were on as you were talking, but okay. So be in control. But to be able to achieve that, make sure that for every application you have the best of breed knowledge, the best of breed partners, everything, or the people that you trust in those applications, and make them aware that they have to look at the whole system, not just their own part. So basically saying, see what's in front of you. Not only your application, but the whole Dynamics platform. That's including our free applications, but that is including Office 365. That's including everything what's on Azure. Open yourselves up to the opportunities and don't limit yourselves at the boundaries of the box. And we're now on 0, as I see. This is a nice timer over here. So if you have any questions or remarks, or want to know something, why are we switching to... Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. You can ask questions. I can just show you that in the meantime I just created a packing slip into operations, and it is integrated into sales. We had some technical problems, so we didn't have enough time to show everything. But just to know, I created a packing slip from the sales order, and this information is sent back to sales. So it goes both ways. Yeah, so please, any questions, remarks?
Does anyone have any questions?
Ask a question. Before you make a decision to use a service bus, which opportunities you also consider as an integration platform for all this stuff works together?
Basically, the question is, which integration alternatives did we consider before we went to the service bus? Basically, we looked at Scribe, but as I said, in my past experience, I worked with developers of such integration tools, and always, we tried to make it that you could easily configure an integration by a functional consultant. But we always ended up somewhere in the chain developing something. And therefore, and given the time frame that we're at, we had to make a decision where we said, okay, we have to be absolutely sure that we can deliver every process as we design it. So we need to be fully in control of basically every last dot and comma of our processes. Because I didn't want to end up being blocked anywhere, or having to develop another set of application knowledge and another set of experts to get our integrations running. So that's why I chose for that. What we see in the future is that we are going to use the common data service when and if the scenario will fit. Then we probably will go back to the standard. As logic apps will be developed more and more, and if we can adapt to the standard, we will do so. We're not a development company as is, but if there's no alternative, or we're not sure that we can achieve what we want, then we have no other option than to program it ourselves. Is that an answer to your question?
Yes. Can I ask you one more question? When you said the messages that are sent to service bus, are you talking about the finalized list of messages?
Let me, Riester can probably answer. The question is, when you send a message,
yeah,
what does the message really contain? Is that what you're...
Yes, is it predefined content of the message?
No, it's not predefined. That's the whole thing. It's a generic message. So basically, you pick up all the fields of your entity, of your record. So if this record has more fields in the future for customization, Microsoft update, or anything, we'll pick up all the fields and send in this message.
So that's what's the other thing. What I did, maybe I did it wrong, but what I did in the past was, okay, when you send a message, you just give, or the sender just sends the message that the receiver needs. And if something changes in either side, then you have to adapt the messaging framework as well. But if Microsoft, during an upgrade, decides to add 10 fields to the accounts entity, and those 10 fields are just transferred over to the within the message, and we'll let the subscribers, on their part, we'll let them do whatever they want with that message. So each application can evolve on its own.
Yeah, but we want to keep the applications clean. So we already did something, and we want to keep it like that. If we have new fields, we don't want to change operations, we don't want to change sales, but only if we want to change the business logic into the integration application. Only in one place. That was the whole intention.
One question: how much has this been stress tested? How many data are you using in your testing?
Well,
Decided to go live with this, and is it scalable for large amount of data?
yes. And it's not on this part that we tested it. I can say at Bespoke, the place where you saw, we have built a new complete warehouse with automated, well, there's robots that pick everything by themselves. That's running up to the maximum of messages that we are expecting in our system. And we went live with it without any problems.
How do you manage the application support of the platform, and especially the integrations? Because I know other tools give you predefined dashboards and abilities to fix issues. You know, say if part of your integration doesn't work, how do you manage that? Do you have to build a lot of custom screens and dashboards?
No. So the question is, how do we maintain and manage and follow the whole messaging structure, so to speak? Well, basically, Azure is there to support you. Well, last week there was a problem, and Azure basically sent out a message earlier than we saw it, and before it became a problem. So, in the first place, the Azure portal takes care, in a large extent, of that. Having said that, yes, we have logging systems, and based on top of that, we can have services that check that, and the moment that something goes wrong, we'll send specific messages out to specific persons to address problems when they arise. Having said that, you also then need specialists maintaining the Azure environment. And, well, I think 5 years ago, Azure was like this, and it is now like humongous, and it will grow and grow and grow. So we probably need more expertise than we thought possible. But you have to choose then again those solutions where you think, okay, this is what I can handle and I can use and be an expert on, and able to maintain yourselves. So we're not on Azure. You could make a couple of choices doing the same thing, but stick to the ones that you know and only experiment with others when you're ready for it, not before. Other questions? Thank you, and don't hesitate to...
I think we have one more over there.
Oh, sorry.
Please.
This validation you showed us when you tried to change the text group, was this your external validation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at the picture, there was on the master data there was a little diagram which tried to show that it's a validation service. And are you going for it? No, we're not on there anymore. But okay. That's being called from either application, whether you're changing an account in operations or or a sales text group from operations or from sales. It runs through the same validation, and it's based on the master data management or the master data record.
Directly from finance and operations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before the update, actually. So.
Yeah, before it's saved, for the actual save, it's triggered through that.
Just like you have, for example, invoice posting and posting setup. If you don't have the setup, it won't post. You'll get an error message. We try to achieve that cross application.
I get a signal that we have to close off. thank you for your attention and
Thank you.